want to get your thoughts on Roger Federer's tweet earlier today that has been rocking tennis Twitter and the tennis world, saying, just wondering, am I the only one thinking that now is the time for men's and women's tennis to be united and come together as one? And then he went on to clarify that, saying that it was not about merging competition, but merging the two governing bodies, the ATP and the WTA, that oversee professional tennis on the men's and women's tours. So, Andy, what was your reaction to those tweets?
Yeah, I mean, I think the ideology of it is undefeated. But yet here we are with two separate tours. I think, for my mind, this whole vision of unity is great, and it sounds amazing in a soundbite now. But if you're the ATP and the WTA, is there a way where your combination leverages an asset, so therefore you can ask for more in a TV deal, so therefore everyone wins on a financial stake? I've heard the ITF thrown in also, and I'm not sure what the value add is there. Their biggest asset, Davis Cup, is a little upside down financially. I've heard it's tens of millions, and do we even know that's going to be financially viable in 3 years? So do you take on their kind of business misses into this equation? In theory, it's amazing, but you do have to see the balance sheets. You do have to see the financial viability, and you do have to see if this combination creates such a monster asset that it works for everyone, and it's a financial win for everyone, because at the end of the day, we are participants in the business of tennis.
Again, I think the fact that this is Roger Federer, who doesn't cavalierly toss around hot takes, is really significant here. But think of this from the outside. Imagine you're McKinsey Consulting and you're looking for tennis, and you say, well, you got a men's tour and a women's tour, and there's a lot of interaction and there's a lot of overlap. It's pretty much the same business model. Hey, they share TV when they play together. Oh, and they both have separate companies that are headquartered in the same state. Here's an idea. Why don't you merge the product? We can figure out best of 3 versus best of 5. We can figure out prize money. That all comes later. As far as merging tours, I think it's a no-brainer. Andy, you and Lindsay were both playing in 2002. At the time, you had the Williams sisters bursting onto the scene. It was pre-Federer Nadal, and the women's doubles final at Wimbledon outdrew the men's singles final. And immediately everybody said, why don't they combine tours? Why don't we piggyback on these two sisters? They're charismatic. These African-American sisters are going to transform tennis. Why don't we make one tour? Well, now we have an opportunity again. This is a great hedge. I think credit to Roger Federer, credit for Billie Jean King for saying this 10 years before. Lindsay Davenport, I turn it over to you, but I say let's get this done.
Oh, I agree wholeheartedly. And it just seems so crazy that some tournaments we all play together and then we go separate. I spoke to Tony Gotzik, Roger Federer's agent, and he said it's really Billie Jean King's dream. Roger just opened the jar publicly, but he thought there was a lot of value in trying to get the media and the TV rights sold as one, and then really everybody wins. And it's so true. I mean, Billie has been championing women's causes and especially women's tennis for so long. There's a reason why women's tennis is the leading women's professional sport. It's all due to her. This was part of her dream with team tennis. And now, again, we've been talking about this might be the perfect time to be able to merge the tours and really sell it as one.
To John's point, Andy, the fact that Roger Federer put this out there, the fact that Rafa retweeted it and put his thoughts out there supporting this. Obviously, Billie Jean's been talking about this since the 1970s, as she said, but having the two most high-profile, arguably, tennis players in the world in support of this, what does that mean?
Well, it means a lot, and it's the reason why we're sitting here talking about it today. I would challenge you to, before we all just go in a circle of agreement, I would actually challenge you to find someone who doesn't agree with the premise of the idea. So my mind goes to, okay, what are next steps? And I mentioned wanting to see the ink dry on the relief fund 3 days ago. And then since then, it looked like there was an ATP relief fund, and now it's a relief fund with a partnership between the Slams, the ATP, the WTA, the ITF. So we need some clarity around the organization of how this would actually happen past the idea. Would there be co-CEOs? Would someone lose a job along the way? So those are the questions that really interest me in making this a reality. But surface level, especially for all the reasons that John just said, with the startup of or the nature of the business being the same in the same state, there's a lot of advantages already with this idea. So now it's just a matter of thinking through how to completely leverage that unity in a business sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are a lot of deal points you would want to work out. And look, I mean, clearly there has been resistance. I mean, I mean, God bless Roger Federer, but this isn't some crazy idea that he just cooked up. I mean, it seems fairly logical. And I think the resistance has come by the fact that these are two separate businesses right now with two separate P&Ls and two separate bottom lines and two separate revenues. I think issues like, do you pay equal prize money if one tour brings in more sponsorship than the other? All right, you know what? Let's sit down and have a discussion about that. I mean, I think sometimes we confuse bottom line issues with deal points. And I think that there are points that need to be negotiated. You're right, Andy, about personnel. You're right about, again, if two tours have different levels of sponsorships, well, maybe the revenues don't get split 50-50. But again, that's the kind of thing that can be negotiated. As far as combining this, going out to the marketplace, going out to television partners, going out to sponsorships and saying, hey, you know what? We have all sorts of young players, old players. Coco Gauff, she's up and coming. She's 16 years old. But hey, Roger and Rafa are still out here. There is a lot to be gained here. It sounds so trite, but this whole 1 + 1 = 3, it's never been more true than it is with this sport.
And certainly unity is something we've been trying to get for a long time. And now maybe during this time off, we will get to that point in the tennis world.